Russia is trying to get Belarus, and Belarus has a north and northwestern border with Ukraine, more deeply involved in the war. Putin was disappointed, angry actually, that Belarus didn't throw its army into the war directly. And they've now transferred missiles, and they're transferring more powerful missiles and also airplanes that launch missiles and bombs into Belarus.
The leaders of the G7 countries were meeting in Bavaria yesterday. Ukraine faced a barrage of missiles across the country. Askold Krishulitsky is the Times reporter in Ukraine, our regular voice from the country. Good morning, Askold.
Good morning.
How big a step change has there been, or was it how do you judge it? What was the nature of these attacks?
Well, yesterday morning I was actually in Kyiv, and overnight, Saturday, Sunday, there'd been a number of rocket attacks, and then about 11 o'clock in the morning there were two more explosions. So what's changed is that the Russians seem to be launching many more rockets at a single target, and the Ukrainian military is explaining it because they've had quite a lot of success in knocking down Russian missiles that are fired at Ukraine, and usually the Russians would fire 3 or 5, and the Ukrainians would be able to knock down most of them. And now they're trying to fire 20 or 15 at a time. Much more difficult for the Ukrainian anti-air forces to knock them all out. So some of them are getting through.
And why is Kyiv a target again? Because it's felt that there's been this focus on the Donbas region. We'll talk about that. A successful focus, it has to be said, by the Russian military. What is this a reminder that the war's not over elsewhere across the country? Is it a warning? Why go after Kyiv in this way again?
No, indeed, it's been Kyiv and also other areas that in recent weeks have been fairly quiet in western and northern Ukraine. Part of it is because Russia is trying to get Belarus, and Belarus has a north and northwestern border with Ukraine, more deeply involved in the war. Putin was disappointed, angry actually, that Belarus didn't throw its army into the war directly. And they've now transferred missiles, and they're transferring more powerful missiles and also airplanes that launch missiles and bombs into Belarus. And so there seems to be a concerted effort to get Belarus more involved in the conflict, and Belarus can strike at western provinces of Ukraine, through which aid, military and humanitarian, enters Ukraine.
Now, last time we spoke, Askold, the situation was looking parlous for the city of Severodonetsk. Has it fallen now to the Russians?
No, Severodonetsk has fallen, and the Russians are completely in control there of what remains of the city, because they pulverized it, and the governor of that province, Luhansk, said that 80 to 90% of the buildings were destroyed. So they're now in control of a lot of rubble that they've created. And Ukrainian forces have withdrawn to the sister city of Severodonetsk, about 6-8 miles to the west, and it's called Lysychansk, and it's on higher ground. The Russians now have to cross a river and approach higher ground from which the Ukrainians can strike at them. But that city is set to become probably the next big battle, and the Russians are determined to take it, because that will complete their control or occupation of the province of Luhansk.
And just finally then, this is clearly, it's been a good couple of weeks militarily speaking for Russia in this region. Macron and Johnson are talking about surges G7 are talking about providing more munitions to the Ukrainians. How desperately is that needed? And what's the thinking? I mean, do they feel that Russians can be pushed back further if more munitions arrive?
Yes, I think that President Zelensky of Ukraine and other senior politicians and senior military command here in Ukraine daily make appeals to the West to send rapidly more powerful artillery and rocket systems. Ukraine's difficulty has been that the Russians have missiles and artillery that can fire far greater ranges than what Ukraine typically has at the moment. And the feeling is that if that equation can be changed and Ukrainians can fire their artillery deep behind or into Russian lines, they will be able to turn the tide of battle or war in the east, because their quality of troops has always proved superior to the Russians. The Russians have been making advances purely by force of numbers of weapons and